Today's video is about wines that you should look to buy and drink in 2024. These are wines that generally see broad distribution in the international market. Many of them can be found in the US for under $25 per bottle. Hi, I'm Bob Polensky, Master of Wine. Thank you for clicking on today's video. I did a quick tally of the wines that I tasted last year, and that number exceeded 4,000 different wines. That's through trade shows, various wine competitions that I've judged at, through travel, for my day job, and for this YouTube channel. Now, within that range of wines, there are four that popped up at the top of the list that I think you should definitely consider for 2024. I'll take a look at the grape varieties, the places of origin, and I'll also provide some other random tips that can be helpful when you're out wine shopping. My wine preferences have definitely changed over the years, and generally speaking, I'm looking for wines that have less oak influence, and they definitely must have a strong sense of place. Now, in this video, the focus is not so much on wines to cellar away, but wines that are really meant for near-term consumption. These are not crazy, esoteric, incredibly difficult to find wines. In many cases, they can be found in many markets around the world through a good retail source. Now, you may not find the exact wines that I'm going to be tasting in this video, but in the description, I'll post some alternatives that'll give you options when you're out shopping. First up is one of the unsung heroes of the wine world and consistently an excellent source for value. Depending on the region, it might go by Pinot Blanc, Pinot Bianco, Weissburgunder, along with a laundry list of other names. It produces a wide range of styles as well, including those that can range from bone dry to dessert wine sweet. It also plays a key role in many sparkling wines as well. Here I'm focusing on the drier style with minimal oak influence. While it's grown in many places around the world, often the most interesting versions are among some of the easier to find, with Alsace and Alto Adige from northeast Italy being among the most noteworthy. 2021 Domaine Charles Bauer Pinot Blanc from Alsace. Ideally, look for examples that are 3 years old or less. This is a perfect candidate as an alternative to Chardonnay, if I can get the cork out, especially if you're a fan that enjoys very bright, clean, fresh styles of Chardonnay. This wine looks exactly as it should. The color is pale. It has a very vibrant, fresh look. Keep in mind, it's just barely over 2 years old. And the aroma is primary fruit, apple, stone fruit. There is a bit of an almond characteristic, and very typical of Pinot Blanc is a bit of a floral element. This wine definitely has that as well. On the palate, there's some good weight here, but all that fruit characteristic shows through. And the wine is medium bodied. It shows 13% alcohol. That's typical for Alsace. Sometimes in warmer vintages, it'll tick up a bit. The acidity level is also that medium level. It's not the ultra fresh, bright style, but there's enough acidity to give the wine some lift. Oftentimes it's discussed the way the wine looks, the way it smells, the way it tastes, but also with Pinot Blanc, one of the markers is it has a textural component. It's almost creamy. And you do find this in some other wines as well, but this is something that is very typical for Pinot Blanc. I love this wine. I think it's fantastic. And if you haven't searched it out, definitely do it. It's worth a look. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please do it right now. Also hit that like button and definitely hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to speed on all things happening here. I drink more Grenache-based wines than anything else due to the wide range of styles and value for the money. The name will vary depending on the place of origin, with Grenache and Garnache being the two most common. It's also one of the world's most broadly planted grape varieties, and even though it's often treated as a workhorse, when planted in the right place, along with old vines and low yields, amazing results can take place. There are plenty of fantastic solo variety wines, but it's often blended with the likes of Syrah, Mourvedre, and other Rhone varietals, along with a broad range of others as well. Increasingly, it's being used with non-traditional blending partners. It's also the foundational piece for many of the world's top rosés. Look to the southern Rhone, Spain, and Australia for the best range of options. There's also a Grenache Blanc and Gris, but here I'm focused on the red. Next up is the Domaine Cairanne from the southern Rhone in France. In the southern Rhone, Grenache is king, with wines like Côte de Rhone or Côte de Rhone Village. These make up the vast majority of what's produced in the southern Rhone, but the wine styles can vary considerably. If you move up to more of the upper echelon wines, wines like Châteauneuf de Pape, Gigondas, Vacqueyras, the one that I've just opened here, the styles are much more reliable. They have more structure, more depth, more weight, more concentration, and just more consistent in terms of what you can expect to find in your wine glass. The issue is many of them have nudged up in price in recent years. The one that I'm going to focus on here remains one of the best values at the top end for the Southern Rhone. With this specific wine, it's 50% Grenache, 25% Mourvedre, 25% Carignan. Oftentimes, Syrah will play a role as well, and there's a whole long laundry list of other grape varieties that can come into play. But the appearance on this wine is exactly as it should be. There's a good depth of color with just a bit of fade as you get out to the edge of the glass. Love the way this wine smells. It's smoky, spicy. There's a peppery characteristic and a deep, ripe red fruit note as well. Very lifted, very quite powerful aromatics. It just smells fantastic. It's weighty. There's a hearty, deep, full-style red. That fruit character just shines through with that savory spice note as well. There is a bit of tannin here. And these are wines that we're talking about drinking in 2024. Cairanne is one that certainly can age a few years, but it also shows very well when it's relatively young. It's a beautiful wine, great depth to it. There's a lot of complexity, shows a true sense of place to that Southern Rhone. If you haven't tried this, definitely search it out. Gamay is one of the trendier grape varieties, and while it does have some international reach, the benchmark standard and most widely available are those from Beaujolais. Look past the seasonally available Nouveau and large commercial brands. Instead, go directly to Cru Beaujolais. They represent some of today's most exciting artisanal wines. It's a place that's experienced an amazing renaissance in recent years. There are 10 crus which represent the best of the region. All of them are worthwhile. The region has many small family-owned domains that make sensational wines. A few are age-worthy, but most are drinking well upon release. Prices have bumped up, but there are still a good number that can be found that are fantastic values. Next up is one of the Domaine bottling crus. This is Chateau de Javernon Cherubla. This is a region that's dominated by negociants and cooperatives. And what that means is there's a high degree of exchange of both grapes and finished wine as well. Some of these can be very good, but if you're looking for the real excitement from the region, my suggestion is look for the Domaine bottlings. This bottle shows a good amount of information on the back label, but that is some very tiny copy. I'm going to need a helping hand. And what it shows is native yeast fermentation. The wine is not fine, not filtered, therefore it may throw a slight deposit. Decanting is recommended. Okay, this wine has been standing upright for a couple of days, and I'm going to take a bright light. I'm going to shine that light into the base of the bottle. It might be difficult to see on this video, but I'm looking to see if there's any sediment whatsoever. There appears to be none. Therefore, I'll opt to not decant this wine. This wine has a wax capsule, and there's a bit of a trick in opening wines like this. I need to build this bottle up to show you. Yeah, I think that'll work. There's no need to actually scrape any of the wax off. Just simply take the corkscrew and go directly into the cork, leaving the wax capsule just as it is. And this should actually come apart quite clean. Sometimes you'll find wax capsules where they shatter. It's a hard material, really bad stuff. But this one is just as it should. And if you feel the need, you can always use the serrated part of the corkscrew to clean it up a bit. That's completely up to you. I recently picked up some new wine glasses for aromatic reds like Cru Beaujolais, Pinot Noir. So this is a bit of a maiden voyage. The color of this looks exactly as it should. It's fairly pale red, a little bit of a purpley color, and there's a slight amount of haze here as well. So I'm sure that ties back to the comment about the wine being not fined or filtered. Wow, aromatics, very lifted. Has that black fruit, red fruit character, a little bit of a savory note to it as well, but extremely expressive. I mean, this just leaps out of the glass, and it has a fantastic purity to it as well. If I had to describe this wine with one word, it would be sublime. Seamlessly smooth, very nuanced. Everything comes together in just an amazing fashion. There's fantastic purity of the fruit character and very good acidity as well. Very soft on the back palate, tannins with Cru Beaujolais. Even those that are meant for some longevity, that wines tend to be rather soft. But this is proof that you don't need to have power and heft to have an incredible bottle of wine. This is all based on finesse. So definitely check the description below. There I'll list several of the Domaine bottlings. Again, these are generally very small producers, so it may take a little bit of looking, but it's definitely worthwhile. While Gamay has limited reach, Cabernet Franc is making its mark all around the world. Currently, Cabernet Franc is one of the most exciting grape varieties anywhere. It's one of the parent varieties to Cabernet Sauvignon, so there are some similarities, but Cab Franc is often a bit less full with a little more lifted red fruit character and generally with lower tannins. The versions from Loire and Bordeaux are timeless classics, with the latter being blended with other grape varieties. But the up-and-coming regions for Cab Franc are very exciting. Canada is making some interesting wines with it, including noteworthy dessert wines. Add California, Oregon, Washington, Italy, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa to the list. For me, among some of the most interesting and exciting for the money are those from South America, specifically from Argentina. I'm convinced that it will someday become the next signature grape variety behind that of Malbec. 2021 Mascota Vineyards Cabernet Franc from Mendoza, Argentina, made from 100% Cabernet Franc. Close to 40 years ago, I had my first experience with Cabernet Franc, and I hated it. The wines were green, lean, mean, nasty. Every sentence describing Cab Franc started with the word unfortunately. And it was because I tried some really bad examples early on, and it really jaded my perception of Cabernet Franc. And it didn't change until I started to make my way through the Master of Wine program. And at that time, I had to reassess my thoughts on Cabernet Franc. And I discovered that I was missing some fantastic wines for a number of years. Now, this is one of the more exciting grape varieties in the world today, and certainly in its home base within Loire and some of the Cab Franc blends from Bordeaux, incredible wines. But I'm finding that many of the more exciting wines with Cab Franc are actually in some of the areas that are fairly new in terms of developing an interest in it. And that's what I have here today. If you haven't seen or heard much of Cabernet Franc from Argentina, you certainly will in the years to come. The plantings keep increasing, the demand is certainly going up, and the examples are fantastic. They're too good to ignore. Now, the color of this is deep as the wine is very youthful, a bit of a purple color, and a slight fade as you get out to the rim of the glass. And the aroma, very lifted. It has that cranberry pomegranate characteristic, a bit of a roasted coffee note. This is the only example in today's video that has more of an oak influence in it, but the wine has the structure and weight where it actually contributes to the overall complexity. It doesn't dominate the wine. Absolutely love the way this wine smells. Very round, good weight. There's good structure to it. The fruit is very clean, very pure. And keep in mind that in the better vineyards in Argentina, we're talking up in the Andes. So these are some places that definitely have some elevation. And with that, the temp tends to be a bit cooler. The seasons are also longer. And you'll find that the wines retain a good level of acidity. Now, this wine at just a couple of years old is drinking fantastic at the present time. I think this probably has the structure to age a bit more, but I'm liking it right now. And if you haven't experienced the wines, the Cab Francs from Argentina, definitely need to check these out. They're fantastic values and they're becoming much more plentiful. Today's video covered 4 options that are fantastic choices for drinking in 2024. Hey, I'd love to hear from you. Please post your comments down below. I try to follow up on each and every one. I've got some interesting wines to choose from tonight. I hope you're drinking something interesting as well. And please stop back again before too long. Cheers.